They built 135 luxury homes on my family's land without permission, then tried to evict me from my own property. You've got to see this to believe it. One lone farmhouse completely swallowed by 135 identical McMansions like my grandfather's legacy got mugged by a suburban nightmare. I'm Ezra Blackwood, and the woman stomping across my yard with a sheriff's deputy actually thinks she can steal 4 generations of my family's sweat and call it progress. Veronica Ashcroft slides out of her pristine white Tesla, designer heels immediately sinking into farm mud with that perfect squelching sound of karma. The acrid stench of wet concrete from her illegal development battles the sweet honeysuckle my late wife planted. She waves an eviction notice at me like I'm some squatter on my own damn land. This is a family neighborhood now, she announces with corporate smugness, not some rural eyesore. Thunder crashes overhead as my weathered hand grips the brass dam lever, worn smooth by my grandfather's faithful touch. What would you do if someone stole your family's legacy and called you the problem? Where are you watching from? Let me back up and explain how a peaceful cattle ranch became ground zero for the most brazen land theft in county history. I'm Ezra Blackwood, 4th-generation rancher on 847 acres my great-grandfather Tobias homesteaded in 1889. This isn't just property. It's American legacy written in weathered fence posts, hand-dug wells, and the massive oak tree planted by a man who believed hard work and honest dealing would build something lasting. For generations of Blackwoods have proven him right, until now. The ranch sits on a natural well fed by underground springs that bubble up crystal clear year-round. You can taste the minerals in that water, clean and sweet like nature intended. So pure my late wife Sarah used to joke it could cure anything except a broken heart. That water runs through every blade of grass, every cattle trough, every oak root on this land. But I didn't realize that same water would be the reason developers came sniffing around like vultures. It started small, letters from a company called Ashcroft Development Group, asking if I'd consider selling for fair market value. They didn't get it. This land doesn't have a price tag. When I refused, the tone changed. Surveyors showed up uninvited. Then county inspectors. Then lost documents started appearing in court, paperwork suggesting my land had been rezoned for suburban development. I laughed at first. But when bulldozers showed up one morning on my eastern fence line, laughing stopped real quick. By the time I reached the county office, half my back pasture was already a construction site. And somehow, the permits were all in order. I remember staring at those papers, my grandfather's signature replaced with a digital stamp, the date changed to 2 years after he'd passed. That's when I realized. They'd forged history itself. When I realized someone had forged my grandfather's name, something inside me went cold. You ever feel that? That sharp, heavy silence right before the storm breaks. That was me, standing in a county office that smelled like stale coffee and politics, while some clerk in a cheap tie told me there was nothing they could do. I took those papers home, spread them out on my kitchen table, same table my father built out of pine he cut himself, and studied every page. They'd changed everything, parcel numbers, boundaries, ownership dates. My entire ranch had been carved up on paper like it was theirs to sell. They called it urban expansion. I called it theft. Within 6 months, concrete trucks rolled in. The East Meadow, where my wife Sarah used to grow sunflowers, became Phase 1. My cattle had nowhere to graze. Then came the noise, the hammering, the grinding, the laughter of men building houses on land they didn't own. I watched from my porch as the old barn collapsed under the pressure of machines, dust mixing with tears I didn't let fall. I tried everything. County board meetings, lawyers, news outlets, nobody wanted to listen. Ashcroft Development Group had too much money, too many friends in high places. Every door I knocked on closed quietly, like they were afraid to even say her name, Veronica Ashcroft. They called her the Queen of Suburbia. She built neighborhoods like she was playing Monopoly, buy, build, and bury whatever stood in her way. I guess she thought the Blackwood Ranch was just another square on her board. But I wasn't moving. By the time Phase 4 finished, my old farmhouse stood like an island, surrounded by 135 identical houses with white fences and fake smiles. I'd wake up every morning to the sound of sprinklers hissing over manicured lawns that used to be my cornfield. One morning, a man in a golf cart stopped by and handed me a letter. "Welcome to the Honeysuckle Meadows HOA," it said. "We're glad to have you as part of the community." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Then I read the fine print, and stopped laughing. They'd actually listed my property as Lot 136. The HOA wanted me to pay monthly fees, remove my unsightly barn, and get approval before painting my porch. On my own land. I called the number on the letter. Veronica herself answered. "Mr. Blackwood," she said smoothly, "we're trying to bring unity and aesthetic harmony to this area. Your rustic property doesn't exactly fit the community standard." I told her, "This property was here before your grandparents were born." She chuckled. "Be that as it may, Ezra, we have rules now." That's when it hit me, they didn't just steal my land. They were trying to erase me from it. A week later, I got the first violation notice nailed to my fence. Then another. Then came the county sheriff, apologetic but firm, saying there was a pending eviction order, signed, of course, by Veronica's legal team. But here's what she didn't know. When my father died, he left me a sealed box with a letter inside. He'd written, "Ezra, if anyone ever tries to take this land, don't fight them with fists. Fight them with truth. It's already in your name. All of it." Inside the box were original deeds, hand-signed, notarized, and legally sealed under the Land Preservation Act of 1947. The same act that made the ranch untouchable without direct family consent. And guess what? No consent was ever given. So I picked up my hat, got in my old Ford pickup, and drove straight back to the county courthouse. If Veronica Ashcroft wanted a war, I was done waiting. The land she thought she owned was about to be legally stripped out from under her feet. The courthouse smelled like wet paper and old lies. I'd been in that building 100 times before, paying taxes, registering livestock, doing things the honest way. But that morning, I walked through those glass doors like a man heading into battle. The box of original deeds was tucked under my arm. I wasn't nervous. I was done being quiet. The clerk at the front desk didn't even look up when I told her my name. But when I slid that weathered brown box onto the counter, she finally raised an eyebrow. "Land dispute?" she asked. "Something like that," I said. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from County Judge Markson, a man who'd known my father. His voice carried that polished, practiced neutrality judges wear like armor. "Mr. Blackwood," he said, "you're claiming ownership over property that's been legally sold and developed by Ashcroft Development Group. Do you have evidence?" Without a word, I opened the box and laid out every document, the original deed from 1889, the notarized renewals from every generation, the 1947 Land Preservation Certificate. Markson adjusted his glasses, eyes scanning each page. Then he looked up. "Where did you find these?" "My father left them for me," I said. "And according to that act, this land can't be transferred without written consent from the Blackwood bloodline. That consent doesn't exist." For a moment, the room went still. The clerk stopped typing. The air thickened. Then Markson sighed, leaning back. "Mr. Blackwood, what you have here, is legitimate. But the problem is, so is what they have." He slid a thick file across the table, Ashcroft Development vs. Blackwood. Inside were fake signatures, fake survey maps, and county approvals all stamped and filed. But the most shocking part? Every single one had been processed by Markson's own office. "Sir," I said slowly, "you're telling me your office signed off on forged papers?" He didn't answer. Just said softly, "Be careful, Ezra. There are things bigger than you and me at work here." That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake, it was a system. They'd bought the county, the officials, maybe even the law. I walked out of that courtroom without saying another word. Outside, the rain had started, light at first, then pounding. Reporters didn't care. Developers didn't stop. The new residents of Honeysuckle Meadows drove past me like I was part of the scenery they'd already replaced. That night, I sat on the porch with my father's old shotgun across my knees. Not as a threat, just a reminder. A black man standing alone in a sea of luxury homes, surrounded by laws designed to push him out. Then came the sound, gravel crunching, headlights sweeping across the field. A county SUV pulled up. Out stepped Veronica Ashcroft, holding a glass of wine like it was a victory trophy. "Well," she said, smirking, "I hope we can handle this civilly, Mr. Blackwood." The judge was quite clear, "You have no legal claim left." I didn't respond. I just looked at her, then pointed toward the edge of the property where the well pump stood. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "that water you're all drinking, the lawns, the pools, the kitchens, it runs through my spring. Every drop comes from beneath my land." She blinked. "So?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "So I hope you've paid your water bill." That's when I saw the fear flicker across her face. Because she knew exactly what I meant. The county may have taken my soil, but they forgot the one thing that fed all of it, the water source that started right under the Blackwood Ranch. I watched her face tighten. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. But she was wrong. Because a man defending his legacy doesn't need permission. Just a reason. For weeks, I said nothing. I went about my days like always, feeding what few cattle I had left, mending fences, keeping the porch lights on. But every morning, I watched the development grow quieter. Sprinklers stopped hissing before dawn. Lawn crews stopped showing up. And those shiny white SUVs the residents drove started leaving early, heading toward the city with unwashed cars and unshaved looks. Because I'd done what my grandfather would have done. I turned the lever. The main water valve to the spring, the one that fed every home in Honeysuckle Meadows, was buried beneath my land. My great-grandfather built it to keep the ranch running even through droughts. The developers didn't know that. They just assumed it was a city connection. But the city's pipes only reached halfway up the hill. The rest, all 135 homes, depended on Blackwood water. Within 48 hours, the neighborhood went dry. Faucets sputtered, lawns yellowed, swimming pools turned cloudy. HOA members panicked. The news trucks came next. "Mystery water crisis hits new luxury development," one anchor said. Residents furious, developers silent. I sat on my porch sipping black coffee, watching their headlines flicker on a little TV by the window. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just listened to the sound of silence returning to my land, no construction, no generators, no forced laughter echoing from cookie-cutter porches. Just wind through the oak trees again. 3 days later, Veronica showed up. Not in her white Tesla this time. She came in a black Escalade, dust all over the tires. Her perfect hair was pulled back, her voice sharp but cracked at the edges. "Ezra," she said, stepping out. "We need to talk." I stood by the old pump house, leaning on my shovel. "I thought we already did." She took a deep breath, glancing toward the dry spigots across the hill. "You've made your point. But you can't hold an entire community hostage." I tilted my head. "Funny, that's exactly what you did to me." Her jaw tightened. "This isn't about you anymore. There are families up there, children." I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you built their homes on stolen land." She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "You think progress means paving over history. You think legacy is just dirt waiting to be sold. But you can't steal roots, Veronica. You can't fake what's been earned." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of wet earth. The sky was turning dark again, like the storm was listening. I handed her a single folded document, a copy of the Land Preservation Act deed, the one her lawyers ignored. "This," I said, "isn't revenge. It's restoration." She looked down at it, hands trembling slightly. "What do you want?" "I want my name put back where it belongs. You've got 48 hours to vacate every inch of this property, or I'll take this to federal court. And if you think the county was corrupt, just wait till Washington finds out an HOA was built on stolen land with falsified deeds." She swallowed hard, realizing what that meant. If the feds got involved, every homeowner, every investor, every banker connected to her project would face lawsuits. Millions lost overnight. Her voice dropped. "You can't win like this." I looked at her, calm, steady. "I already have." She turned, furious and shaken, her heels slipping in the mud. The Escalade roared to life and sped up the hill, back toward her pretty little empire now running dry. As the taillights disappeared, I looked at the horizon. Rain clouds gathered again, heavy, gray, and familiar. I could almost hear my father's voice. "When the land remembers who it belongs to, son, the water always finds its way home." That night, thunder rolled over the hills. And for the first time in years, I slept easy. By the next morning, the storm had broken. Sheets of rain poured across the valley, turning fresh pavement back into red mud. I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching the water carve tiny rivers through the brand new subdivision, nature reclaiming what was hers long before the concrete came. The phone rang. It was the county office. Not the clerk this time, the district investigator. "Mr. Blackwood," he said, "we received your documentation through federal channels. You were right. Those signatures were falsified, every single one. Turns out, Veronica hadn't just forged a few papers. Her entire development rested on a web of fake permits, bribed inspectors, and zoning lies. The investigation spread fast, from the county courthouse to the state attorney's office. Within a week, Ashcroft Development Group was trending for all the wrong reasons. I didn't gloat. I didn't post a thing. I just watched it unfold, quiet, steady, the way my father would have done. Reporters started showing up at my gate, shouting questions through the rain. "Mr. Blackwood, did you really shut off the neighborhood's water? Do you think this will bring justice for your family? Will you sue the HOA?" I said only one thing. "This isn't about revenge. It's about remembrance." Because by then, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about 4 generations of sweat, promise, and soil, everything the world tried to bury under marble countertops and cul-de-sacs. A week later, the white Tesla returned. No sheriff this time. No arrogance, no sunglasses. Veronica stepped out in the rain, makeup gone, eyes hollow. She looked like someone who'd finally seen the edge of her own greed. "I came to say I'm sorry," she said softly. "I lost everything. My company, my reputation, all of it." I looked at her, then at the empty homes behind her, 135 of them, silent and soulless. "You didn't lose everything," I said. "You just lost what was never yours." She nodded. No more arguments. No more smugness. Just silence. Then she handed me a small envelope, official government seal, crisp and wet from the rain. Inside was the deed, my family's land, every acre, signed back into my name. I stared at it for a long moment. After all that noise, the sound of the rain hitting the tin roof felt like applause. By spring, the developers were gone. The HOA dissolved. The subdivision stood empty, like a ghost town built on borrowed time. But I didn't tear it all down. Instead, I kept one sign, the one that read Honeysuckle Meadows, and planted it at the gate with a new plaque beneath. In memory of Tobias, Elijah, and Sarah Blackwood, whose roots run deeper than any foundation poured above them. The county tried to rename the area, but I refused. I rebuilt my farmhouse, replanted the sunflower field, and let the spring flow free again. Some mornings, I still hear laughter echoing from those hollow homes, maybe just the wind, maybe something else. But when I walk out to the oak tree my great-grandfather planted, I feel peace. Because the land breathes again. People drive by sometimes, slowing down when they see the old wooden sign. A few stop to ask, "You're the guy from the news, right? The one who took back his land?" I just smile. "No," I tell them. "I'm the one who never left." The camera would pull back there if this were a movie, one farmhouse standing strong in the middle of empty mansions, the oak tree rising behind it, roots deep, leaves glistening under morning sunlight. The storm has passed, the legacy restored. And over it all, the voice of Ezra Blackwood. You can steal land, you can forge names, you can bury truth under steel and concrete, but you can't own history. You can't erase what was built with love. And some legacies refuse to be paved over.